Welcome back to the latest episode of our Meet the Mentor series here at Mentor Me, where we interview all of the great mentors on our website. We've got Clare Alexander here, who can talk to all of us about her fashion experience. So, Clare, would you like to welcome yourself and say hello?
Hello, thanks for having me. Yes, so I work as a fashion brand consultant. So my main job as a mentor is to help people start their businesses, start their brands, and scale them. So if they come to me and they don't know, they have no experience in fashion, but they have an idea, then I can help them turn it into reality.
Amazing. So, obviously, fashion is something that you've heavily experienced in now. What was the core reason for starting in fashion? What was your sort of journey into fashion? What took you along the route of becoming a consultant and then obviously becoming a mentor?
Yeah, it's been quite a long journey, actually. So it goes far back to when I was a kid. Like I used to always be drawing, designing, looking at things. My mum was probably a big influence in that respect. She used to take me shopping. She was
Yeah, looking at all the designer shops. Yeah.
so it was always a big treat to come up to London. So it was always in me that I wanted to do something in fashion. And when I left school, I did like textiles and fashion, and I went straight into working for a fashion supplier. And we're talking a long time back because I used to run around with all the samples to all the buying offices around the Oxford Street area with my A to Z.
Yeah.
Looking at the addresses. I started off as a runner. So I used to run around giving the buyers the samples. And from there, so I've started really at the bottom and just worked my way up. And I've had a lot of different experiences in, say, from fast fashion. So I work with lots of suppliers that supply to high streets, like good high street brands, Topshop, Warehouse, Miss Selfridge, Marks and Spencer's, etc. But I also saw the real like low volume, high retail side, where it was like supermarket brands.
Yeah.
Primark, Peacocks, where it's super low cost, really high volume. And I guess that's where I really cut my teeth, because I was overseas quite a lot, looking at factories in India and Bangladesh, and I was there constantly. So I spent half my year there. So I really know the sort of production side inside.
Yeah.
I've been there, seen it firsthand. But after a while, I found that working in that industry with this fast fashion, it almost led to like a burnout sort of feeling. It was
Quite deflating as well. Yeah.
constantly, when I worked in the sales element of it, we were booking every week. We were at Topshop every week. We had to book orders. And so it became really sort of fast paced. So from there, I decided that I wanted to sort of switch to something a bit different. And I went to work for another supplier that worked with European production, and they worked for brands that were slightly different, slightly smaller, independent designers, people like Alice Temperley, Net-a-Quarter. So it was a real different experience, and it was just a nicer experience.
Yeah.
It was slower, it was more fun, and I could see that side of the business is where I wanted to be. Just felt a nicer place.
Yeah. I can imagine like some of you're always going to be under pressure in fashion, because fashion is something that constantly moves through the ages, right? So I can imagine that the pressure was a little bit different compared to working with some of the bigger high street retailers. And obviously some of those high street retailers have gone bust. Like, I forgot the company, Arcadia, isn't it? That owned like Topshop has just completely gone. Like the high street has completely changed. Everything's gone online. So obviously you'd have seen all of that happen. And I think actually coming back to like your original point about getting started in fashion. So I know a lot of people that wanted to start in fashion. Like both my sisters went to like the Fashion Academy, I think in West London, like Tottenham Court Road, done like a college course there. But actually getting opportunities to work in fashion is like extremely difficult, which is why I think now so many people are going into starting their own fashion lines and starting their own brands. So I think on that, what would you sort of advise people that are looking to get into fashion around, obviously maybe they want to follow a similar path to you, because not everyone wants to become an entrepreneur, but what would you say is the best maybe not the best route, but what would you say are some of the routes into the fashion industry for people? Where should they be looking for opportunities? How should they be reaching out to people? What would be your take on that?
Yeah, so it's not the easiest industry to get into, and there's a lot of competition.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I started, you didn't agree. You could like apply for jobs and get in at the bottom. You need a degree now to even be considered for those jobs. It's, and you're starting here. But I would say, don't take no for an answer. Keep knocking on the doors.
Yeah.
And really look like that. It's not just the main companies like you see ASOS. People would like, if they want to work in fashion, they just see the front facing brands. So they'll see the big brands and that's it. But there's so many more brands to work for now where you can get in. So, and I mean, you can even look on Instagram and look for these brands. There is way more brands than there's ever been, which means there is actually more opportunity to work.
Yeah.
So it's about finding it a different way. Don't go down the traditional route of going to these big brands where everyone's going. Try and get a foot in the door in one of the smaller, lesser known.
Yeah.
DM them or find out their email address. Go and do a LinkedIn deep dive. Find out who is the owner of the company. Like look at their Instagram, see how they're doing. If they have good following, they're not hugely known, but they have a good following. They're a good one to try and approach to find out, and then follow up. Be persistent with it, because I think from my experience, and I've done this when I worked in wholesale, it's like you send your pitch and then you don't hear back, so you're like, I'm okay.
You don't want to work for me.
It just means that person might have just been really busy at that point, and they had 10 other things that they needed to do right at that moment. So then your email just got pushed down the list.
Yeah.
The end just gets pushed down. So be persistent with it. If you don't hear, follow it up again in a week's time, 2 weeks' time. Just keep going, because it might be that they just were busy at that moment. It's not a reflection on you. It's just that they have a million things that they're doing in their business.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
finding a different way in and approaching smaller brands and not necessarily thinking, oh my God, it's this huge industry and I can't break into it. Start small.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good bit of advice, especially depending on what somebody wants. Like a fashion buyer has always been something that my sisters wanted to get into personally, which was always quite difficult. And I think now there's got to be more opportunity just with the amount of people on Instagram with their smaller brands. When it's 10,000 followers, I mean, those type of businesses have probably got a supply chain and then maybe one or two people actually running the business. So they are absolutely swamped, because as an entrepreneur, obviously you wear the hat of the sourcing, the manufacturer, the accounts department, the legal department, like you're doing everything, right? So there's a lot of opportunity, I think, there, especially with the rise of social media. Especially fashion is very like a visual thing, right? It's you like a design and you get all of that now on social media. So I think, yeah, we're in agreement there. In terms of, you said you've gone out to see suppliers, and obviously a lot of stuff has probably happened over the years around the quality of suppliers and the life that they have. So what has been your sort of experience and take on how supplier relationships have grown and actually getting in touch with suppliers for people that do want to start fashion brands? Because obviously with ethical fashion against fast fashion, obviously they want to make sure their suppliers are looked after, whereas I imagine with fast fashion, with companies like Primark, probably it's and all the Nike stuff that used to happen.
It's definitely a minefield with suppliers, and best one in the world, suppliers at factories, they don't do marketing.
Yeah.
You can't find them in the traditional sense. You can't Google and find what you're looking for. It just doesn't exist. There are more platforms now that are trying to do better and get suppliers on board. And actually, one good tip for anyone that is looking to start is to look on the Common Objective website.
Okay, the Common Objective, yeah.
Yeah, and it's an ethical website which partners with suppliers that meet certain criteria.
Okay, awesome.
And you can then look at that website and have a look at the different sort of places that you want to make. And it depends on the product that you want to make, where you're going to go. And unfortunately, that comes with experience, because you don't know that,
underwear is very different to jeans and a shirt, right? Yeah.
And you need different factories because they have different machinery, different capabilities. And the factory you approach might have a minimum of 1,000 units. That's not
when you're starting. Yeah.
So there's lots of different levels, and it can be difficult to find. And that's where I sort of come in a bit, because I've found that whenever I spoke to someone, they can find a designer easily or get their ideas down on paper, working with somebody or stuff like that, but they cannot find factories, or they might have gone and got a degree in design, but they can't set them up for making their own products when they leave.
Yeah.
So they're kind of then thrown into the world, like, here you go, and they don't have that business side of it.
Yeah.
So that's where I can come in and help with my connections and like work out how to find the right manufacturer for you. Yeah, that's a good place to start.
Yeah, so the common objective. So I think everyone should definitely take a look at that. I think that's an interesting thing, because obviously with fashion and most businesses anyway, but you've always got the creative side alongside the business side, and obviously you've got experience in both. And I think probably when most people start, or in almost all cases, they have very much on touch on the creative side. It's the business side that they really struggle with, because it's a new skill that you're trying to do. Obviously, you've got these designs that you love. You want to get them into retailers. You want to get them on ASOS to get them out there. You want to make sure you've got a good supply chain. So obviously, leveraging someone like yourself is extremely useful, right? So starting a business then, starting a fashion label, obviously there's a lot of challenges, and obviously you've worked with a lot of brands around the world. You've been out to see their offices, you've been to suppliers. Some of the businesses you work have made multi-millions, some of them have gone bankrupt. What would you say, especially now since COVID, because I imagine COVID has probably changed the landscape quite a lot, because obviously going to offices and stuff, the whole environment has changed. What would you say are some of the key challenges anybody starting a business now in 2023 would be? Because obviously you've got cost of living as well, which doesn't help anyone.
I mean, it's hugely competitive. So one of the challenges is, finding your sort of spotlight within a sea of brands. So you've really got to stand out. And I think that comes back to, you might have an idea, but you really need to nail your brand messaging and know what you're really doing it for. And I do this with a lot of my clients. They'll come to me with ideas and okay, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
What's the reasons for it? And then we sort of unpack it and we work through it. And I think that one of the challenges is you just throw yourself in and you're not
prepared. Yeah.
And then when it comes to marketing, you're not really sure who you're selling it to or who you're trying to reach with your product. And maybe your pricing isn't quite right because you're not thought about that positioning. So that is definitely a big challenge. And then once you're clear on the brand messaging, I think then marketing it becomes a lot easier for you to sell something that you're really clear on and that you really understand.
Yeah.
Because we've all seen those brands that just silly prints on hoodies. And
Yeah.
last a year and then
Not even a year.
Because there's no value behind it.
Yeah.
That's one thing where small brands can really make a win, actually, is where the high street is dying and these big brands are not doing as well as they used to, say, a decade ago, 20 years ago. The public is ready for small brands. There is opportunity there. There's opportunity to take a slice of that pie where these bigger brands are sort of, their profits aren't as big as they were.
Yeah.
Where are these people turning? You've got to give them somewhere to go. And I think that although there is challenges, there's also huge opportunity and abundance. Like if there are people making money in this industry, why can't you? And I think that's really important because I think sometimes people are really put off. They're like, oh God, it's too difficult.
Yeah.
Too hard. But actually it's the nuts and bolts bit that can be quite challenging, finding that factory, really realizing what you're doing. Once you've nailed all those things, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah.
You can get your slice of that pie.
Yeah, I think traditionally you probably were very reliant on selling your brand through a retailer, whereas now you've got TikTok shop, you've got Instagram type shopping, Facebook shopping, you've got all of these already built onto social media platforms that you can leverage to actually sell your brand and get the message out there, which is obviously extremely useful. It's a lower cost for people to start up. And I really like the point around obviously it's a shame that the high street is dying, but there is obviously plenty of opportunity now for smaller brands. And I think if you've got the quality, because I think quality over quantity is always going to win. Um, yeah, I think more people are now very much moving away from fast fashion and, do ethically buy. And I think over the next 10 years, as Gen Z age up into becoming, I mean, I don't know the stats, I'm spitballing here, but like I would presume that those brands where, people are growing up on seeing them grow on social media, as well as obviously during the whole ethical fashion stuff that's going on, will like 100% become like the big brands. And maybe it won't be that there are, I don't know what the big high street retailers were in terms of total size, but it used to be dominated by a section. I'd imagine that, within the next 10 years, you're probably going to see an ample slice for a lot of the smaller brands.
It's a very weird time in fashion. We have the rise of like Shein, this huge.
Yeah, I've seen that actually. Yeah,
and that's happening. They're taking a huge slice of the market, but at the same time, vintage, resale, pre-sale is also huge.
Yeah, vintage is huge.
The independence is growing. The people that are not winning are those middlemen brands, which are neither luxury, fast fashion. They're kind of
in the middle.
like your Dorothy Perkins,
yeah.
They're not around anymore for a reason because nobody really understood
what
they were trying to achieve in the end. So I feel that is where the independents have that opportunity to maybe move in and take that sort of slice. And yeah, as you said, like it's never been a better opportunity. You only need a laptop.
Yeah.
You can open your laptop, find somebody to help you, and you can get started. That you couldn't do that 10, 20 years ago. So now anybody with the right connections can get started.
Yeah. I think, yeah, obviously online has put everything forward, but it's also given people insight and knowledge into so many different areas where things have now become more ethical. Like, for example, fast fashion, I imagine, has probably been ongoing for quite a while. Obviously not in the current terms of what we're considering fast fashion with things like, ASOS and Primark, but I would imagine since social media has taken off and you see all of the reports a lot more readily available, obviously it's turning people away from those brands. So in terms of positioning, where would you lean for somebody starting a fashion brand to go down? Obviously, there's money to be made on both sides. What do you think is going to have the better longevity for somebody that wants to actually build a business rather than make a quick buck?
Yeah, I think you need to, like coming back to the position, you need to make something you're proud of. So it has to be quality driven.
Yeah.
It needs to be something that's made in small batches. And it's something you need to be very transparent about now. Like, people aren't going to buy into a brand and you're not showing them, where it's made and all of this stuff. So, there's ethical and sustainable. So you need to do it's about doing better. It's not about being 100% sustainable, 100% ethical, because that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a carbon footprint. Yeah.
It's consumerism, okay? We have to get around the fact that, it's happening with doing it. But if you can do it in a considered way and you're making it as best you can, so without harming the planet, with paying fair wage, then that's a really good starting point because, use good fabrics, use natural fabrics, cotton, linens, organic fabrics. Stay away from those man-made fibers and, make sure that your factory has accreditation. Some of the smaller factories don't have it because it's quite costly. So
yeah,
it can run into thousands and thousands to get the accreditation.
Wow.
So you can actually ask them some questions to sort of
qualify them.
Yeah.
What type of questions would they be?
So you can ask them, if you can't visit them, if they're far away, you can ask them to show you around the factory. You can then look at how clean it is. You can see how many workers they have, what are the workers paid, what are their hours. Look at things like, where are the toilets, how many toilets they have, do they have a break room?
Okay.
It's kind of just, you're going to ask them like questions like this that you wouldn't probably think to answer.
Yeah.
And you can ask them to send you videos and pictures. I would say try and get onto a video call with them to do it. So
and be shown round. Yeah, rather than them scripting it.
Yeah, and then, ask the age of the workers. If you're working with somebody that's far away, make sure that
8-year-olds,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
you definitely don't want,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, I've worked with I went to visit a print factory years ago. 20 years ago, and I was questioning the age of some
People then,
people.
yeah,
Yeah, and I wouldn't work with them because I
don't
wasn't
want to,
entirely sure, and I just
yeah,
don't want to be put in that position that okay, stay away from that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's just about making sure that you're trying to cover your bases and you do the best you can.
mm,
No one's going to be 100%
no,
and at the beginning, you have to just be really honest with your target audience. It's like, I'm doing the best I can.
yeah. No, I think people like and it comes obviously down to branding and like brand story. Everyone likes to see you tell your story, I think, and that's obviously a massive part of social media. I think that's a massive part of any brand that you grow, not just fashion. It's obviously something that I put into our business as well. But I think definitely in fashion that like telling the story of your brand is absolutely key. So I just want to move on a little bit to sort of around the influencer side of fashion, because you've got so many different influencers now. Like everyone can become an influencer quite quickly with a video going viral. And a lot of people like obviously content around fashion, and then obviously what it leads to is people selling their own brands. How do you think somebody that wants to start a business but isn't already an influencer can fit into that? Because obviously part of the challenge is going to be, I might start my own small business, but I mean, an influencer is already doing something similar, but already has the audience. They've already there. How do you think somebody can tackle getting into that?
You mean if they've got a similar brand in terms and that, and there's someone else that's doing it?
Yeah, somewhat, obviously, because the influencers are, I mean, almost every beauty fashion influencer has got their own brand of product, which don't blame people, monetize your audience. But for somebody that is wanting to start a fashion business, that is, in my mind, probably one of the key challenges that they've got is obviously breaking into a highly competitive market, especially when all of the influencers out there are sort of launching fashion brands quite regularly.
I think, you'd be surprised at how many influencers you could reach out to for your brand and work with.
Yeah.
And as long as your brand is, you might be selling the same products to others. That happens all the time. There are a million dress brands out there, but it's about what makes your brand unique.
Yeah.
And who's to say that they could be an influencer, but it might not mean that they're selling product. You just, you don't know. So influencer marketing isn't dead. Marketing isn't dead. It's something that is still very much alive. But people have built brands on it. I was talking about this the other day. So I work as head up the influencer program of one of the companies I work for, and we just started doing it. And you don't have. It's difficult to say, but if you don't have the budget, you don't have to work with people on a paid basis. So
referral codes, giving products.
The tip is to sort of approach people with maybe not as big a following, and maybe they're on their own journey as an influencer. And the way to approach it is that you want to make it a partnership.
Yeah.
So it might just be gifted for now, but if you work together and it works well, and you could see, it's
growth
for them, work for you, and there's growth there, then that could turn into paid later. So it's about being really honest with that influencer, and don't be scared to approach them.
Yeah. I think most of them got emails in bios now as well. Like you can get in touch with them. So in terms of like reaching out to the influencers, what would you say, and this is going to be really difficult to actually give because it will vary, but like in terms of followers, what would you say is like the ideal person to reach out? If my business is brand new, I've got some really lovely designs, my shop's live, I've got some products that we've been selling, we're struggling to get it out there, I want to start influencer marketing. Where should I start? Should I be trying to target those people that have got hundreds of thousands of followers, or should I be trying to get more people at 10, 20K followers?
Yeah, I think I think if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
So approach them. You might not get the response that you want, but there's no reason that you can't ask. Because I've worked with clients that have approached influencers, paid huge money from designer brands, and they have, done stuff for them.
Yeah.
So, because they can also see, okay, this brand could grow. So I want to get in with them now. So
they want to buy into it.
Opportunity at the start for them to buy into. So don't discount approaching just because they have a large following. But at the other end, I work with influencers that have got a very small following, 5,000, 10,000. So you can ask anyone, like, it just make it sure they're aligned with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
you wouldn't want to give it to somebody.
Like, if you're a fashion brand and you're reaching out to a fashion influencer, but you're a sustainable, ethical, doing your best brand, don't reach out to somebody that's doing Shein.
Yeah.
Or, they're doing all that kind of stuff. It's just not
negatively going to affect your brand as well, isn't it? Yeah.
It needs to be within what you're trying to do and what it's got to sit with it. So obviously, I'm working with an active athleisure wear brand, and we are actively looking for influencers. And you'd be surprised how many people have said yes to work in, and then made sure that they're in that niche. They've got the aesthetic that matches the brand. So you need to make sure that it's a collaborative partnership. And the same with at Bike Shed, we have a niche, and it's all around motorcycle culture, lifestyle, community. So all the people reaching out to are within that niche, so that it makes sense. It has to make sense.
Yeah,
for it to work.
Of course.
Otherwise, it just doesn't come across as authentic.
Yeah, and I think that's key. I want to come on to the motorbike brand in a minute, actually. But just to touch, like, finalise on the influencer piece, I think I saw something a little while ago online around, there was a brand in Australia. I can't remember if it was a swimwear brand or an underwear brand or some other type of clothing brand. They wanted to get Kendall Jenner as part of their influence team, but they just didn't feel like they would ever get a response. So they targeted and found all of Kendall Jenner's friends, gave all of them the item, and then Kendall Jenner came to them and was like, "Can I have your product, please?" So I think, like, leveraging things like that it is pretty good. I was quite impressed, actually, when I read that, because that's just the outside of the box thinking that people don't usually think of.
Yes.
And I definitely think that helps people. So coming on to the motorcycle brand, so you've worked with some massively different companies in terms of the people they target. How did you adapt to working with the motorcycle brand? Because obviously that must have been a completely new niche, like targeting people that, whether it's M&S, you're targeting the general population, or if it's Lipsy or Miss Selfridge, where predominantly women. Like, how did you get on with adapting to that? Because obviously I think anyone that wants to come to you and find out is going to be quite interested to hear about more of your experience.
Well, it was more of a merging of passions and work.
Yep. Do you have a motorcycle yourself?
Yes.
Okay. There you go.
I used to hang out with Bike Shed. I part of the female collective called BC London, and we had meetups sort of every week there. And my husband was the one that pushed me to ride.
Yeah.
Just a little bit about that. So,
what motorbike do you have?
I've got a Harley.
Oh, classic.
Yeah, I've been riding for 7 years now.
Oh wow.
So before we were getting married, I mean, he's been riding for ages. We decided that we would go to California and ride down the Pacific Coastal Highway.
Oh wow, I bet that was a
hire bikes.
incredible experience.
To me, this is where I even started this business. You can either ride pillion, ride bitch, as he said, or you can get your own license and ride your own bike. And I was like,
I don't want to sit with you.
This, I'm doing it. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. So, and he really pushed me. And the first time I rode bike fell off.
Yeah. It's partly why I would never do it. I actually think I'd kill myself.
You keep going, you get on that bike, you keep practicing, you keep going. You have to be practice, get on it. And I did it, and then a year later I passed my test.
Amazing. You're away.
Off to California, and rode those Harleys. So I had a goal, and before I come back to bike, said that is what helped me start my business, because basically, if I could learn to ride a motorcycle and do it and feel that fit, then I could start my business.
Yeah.
So that pushing myself out of my comfort zone with that allowed me to sort of
get into
because I'd already done that once in almost a life and death experience.
I would definitely say it was a life and death experience. Yeah.
You're putting yourself at risk.
Yeah.
When you're on the road, so what's the worst could happen? Starting a business, like. It's not going don't kill you.
No, exactly. No, exactly.
Took that. So from there, we were hanging at the bike shop. My husband told me about this place. We were hanging around there. And then I spoke to Vicky, who is one of the CEOs there. And she sort of brought me on to meet Dutch and Gareth, who's the other CEO and the brand director. And they basically charmed me into coming to work with them. And so I started working with them in 2018. I still work there now as freelance. But the challenges are not different to fashion brand.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to create products and sell it at the core business.
It's just a new market you're targeting.
A new market that we're targeting, and it's more community driven. Bike Shed started as a blog.
Yeah.
And it grew into events, and then it grew into actual space in Shoreditch, and now there's one in LA as well.
Oh, incredible.
So it's huge.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. And so, yeah, I through being in that community, through that passion, I was then able to, gel the two almost. So it was a really nice.
It was a good fit as well. Yeah.
And working in that lifestyle, motorcycle culture side of the business, side of brands, it was really good. And it's the best time to mentor as well.
There you go.
Well, I loved it. Yeah, it was really good. And I'm still then, as you said, it was a completely different and challenging market. All my contacts in terms of buyers were irrelevant to this.
Yeah, you had to go and do it again.
I had to I was working as wholesale, but then setting up, selling their brand into other shops. And so I had to be really creative and find all these suitable independent motorcycle shops to sell into.
Yeah.
So this was something, almost I was a startup.
Yeah, exactly. You were starting from the beginning, really. And I mean, I think it's quite nice as well, because it comes into what we were talking about earlier with brand story, that actually having a passion for something obviously goes such a long way. And actually, obviously, starting off as a blog, and I think we're seeing this a lot now. A bit interested to get your take on it around community. I think community is key in any business now. Is something that I'm sort of looking to get push as well, actively growing a community. And I think we're starting to see that in the fashion world, aren't we?
Certainly. I think it's really important. And I think now people are becoming more aware that community is actually where you should start.
Yeah.
Trying to build the community and then build the brand around that. I'm seeing that more and more. And Bike Shed started off as a blog. It started passionate about it. And then it grew to an event, people building bikes and bringing them to showcase. And from there, it just grew. And then the retail side of it came later. So that was sort of almost an added bonus to what they started as. It's now one of the main things to do. But I do feel that the community-driven brand, somebody that is trying to build that, people want somewhere to belong. It's definitely a time where we're all working from home. Most of us, it's not everyone does that, but it's more isolating than it ever has been since the pandemic. So we're actively seeking out communities, places that we belong,
and representation of you and your personality, right?
What you like to do. So there's more of a turn towards that because people want to belong to something. Whether that's bikes, whether it's fashion, whatever it is. Building that at the core of your brand is only going to help it.
Definitely, I agree. So just to move on then, more about you again. So obviously you've gone into mentoring. What was your journey into mentoring? I always think the logical next step for most people, especially if you're the type of person that likes to help people, is to start helping people and mentor them. So what was the moment that you went, right, I should begin mentoring people? Obviously you got this vast amount of experience, but what actually sort of was the click for you that went, I'd love to start helping people now. I feel like I've got the experience. I want to help people start their dreams.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. So it was more of a sense of I need something more in my life. This was during the pandemic. As much as I love working with Bike Shed, there must be something.
Yeah.
Even though I love it, never felt that I've
fully fulfilled as well.
9 to 5.
Yeah.
You must work here from this hour till this hour, and your lunch break is then, and you have to come here and get your holiday signed off.
Yeah.
I'm too old for that now.
No, you're not.
I want to make sure that I can, I can go wherever, I can work wherever.
Yeah.
And it's ultimately me making that decision. So it came from a place of frustration, I guess, of like, I want to change things. And what can I do to change things? And I was like, have all this experience. My husband actually was like, you could teach other people what you know. I was like, that? Like, surely they know. And basically, when you're in some
Too close to it, aren't you? Yeah.
they all know
What they're doing.
Yeah.
You'd like to think anyway.
So you're there and you're like, oh, well, no. But it's actually the people outside the industry that you need to reach. And then
Yeah.
you start talking to people, you're like, oh, okay, this is the thing. And so I sort of went head first into it. So it's like, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. This is my opportunity. We're home a lot more in the pandemic. And I realized that I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed helping other people. I really enjoyed watching them set up and launch it. Get really excited and make the sales and learn that process. I didn't know it was something I was good at until I started doing it.
Yeah.
And you've got to find your way of working and then attract the people that like to work with you. So yeah, it's been a journey into this because I didn't know this is what I wanted to do until I started doing it.
Yeah.
Threw myself into it and realized I loved it.
But I think that's part of being an entrepreneur, isn't it? It's taking that risk. And I really love that you offer like we're seeing a lot now is like a do it for you in terms of the consulting, as well as I'll show you how you can do it yourself, and then I can either be here if you need me, or I can move on to the next person to help. I really love that model. How are you finding people are getting on with the mentoring? How are you seeing success?
Yeah, it's been really good. So obviously on the consulting side, that's Bike Shed. Like come to
Yeah.
done before you service, I'm still there. I work for them. Like helping develop their brand, doing the buying, the sampling, etc. Getting it into store. That's still like the consulting side. But on the mentoring side, I'm sort of loving seeing the journey of how confident people come and how much they learn along the way. And there's always that light bulb moment where someone's like, I get it now. And they've come to me not knowing anything. And then like one client, she came to me, I mean, she had millions of questions.
Yeah.
I name her, she knows who it is.
She's gonna watch this and say, "All right, it's talking about me."
Yeah, she's launching next month, and he just didn't know, and she actually has a big following, so I'm sure she's gonna smash it. But she didn't know anything, and I took her to the London Textile Fair, which is where all the fabric mills are. They're showing their latest fabric collections, and that was the first time we went. And I was explaining what was going to happen, how we should approach people.
Yeah.
And a year later, we went back. I didn't have to do anything.
She already.
She knew it.
She's on it.
She knew it, and it was so nice for me.
It's gratifying as well, isn't it, to see that you've made an impact on somebody's journey.
Yeah, she knew what she wanted, and she was confident enough to go and talk to people and ask them. I need this fabric, and it's this weight fabric, and I want this. So it was really nice to see. So I love seeing that from brands, and then just seeing them like launch, because obviously I do a lot of work with them before they get to that stage. But I do continue to work with brands after launch as well.
Yeah.
Capacity. But it's so nice when you finally
get that product out there. Yeah.
It's live and everyone can
Get the reviews coming in from people. I love that story. So if people want your help, how can they get in touch with you? How can they start to work with you, either consulting or mentoring? How can people get in touch?
So you can reach me through my website, clare-alexander.co.uk, or on Instagram, I'm Clare_Alex_consults. And I offer the mentoring, the one-to-one services, and I am soon launching a more do-it-yourself course-style digital product. So you can also then take that up if you wanted to. But I offer those different levels. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was so fantastic to talk to you. And what we'll do is we'll get you on a webinar very soon to show people how they can get started with fashion. Thank you. Cheers.